Pride and Prejudice Summary. Life-changing lessons on judgment, ego, and relationships. This story quietly exposes a mistake many people make every day. Judging too quickly, loving too blindly, and letting pride or fear control their choices without even realizing it. And by the time they see the truth, the damage is already done. But what if you could learn to see clearly before it's too late?
Let's explore that. Today, we're diving into Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This timeless novel has remained powerful for over 2 centuries, not because it's just a love story, but because it reveals something deeply human, how our assumptions shape our lives. This book became influential because it captures social behavior, relationships, and personal growth in a way that still applies today. It speaks to anyone who has ever misunderstood someone, anyone who has ever let ego get in the way, anyone who has ever struggled with first impressions. At its core, this story solves a silent problem. We often believe we are rational, fair, and aware, but in reality, we are guided by bias, emotion, and incomplete information. And that affects our relationships, our decisions, and ultimately, our happiness. So as you listen, think about your own life. Where might pride or prejudice be shaping your choices without you noticing? Now, let's break this into the most powerful lessons.
The first core idea is this: first impressions are often wrong, but we trust them anyway. We all do it. We meet someone, we observe a small detail, and instantly we form a judgment. We label them. We decide who they are, and then we stop looking deeper. But here's the truth. Your first impression is not reality. It's a guess, and often it's an inaccurate one. Think about how many times you've misunderstood someone's tone, or assumed someone was arrogant when they were simply reserved, or dismissed someone who later turned out to be valuable in your life. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Pause your judgment. Delay your conclusion. Give people time to reveal who they truly are. And let's repeat that, because it matters. Your first impression is not the full story. Your first impression is not the truth. Your first impression is just the beginning. When you remember this, you open the door to better relationships and fewer regrets.
The second lesson is about pride and how it quietly limits your growth. Pride feels strong. It feels like confidence. But often, it's just resistance to change. Pride says, I'm right. Pride says, I don't need to reconsider. Pride says, I already know. And because of that, pride blocks learning. It blocks the connection. It blocks growth. In everyday life, this shows up when you refuse to admit a mistake, when you avoid apologizing, when you ignore feedback, when you hold on to a belief just because it's yours. But growth requires humility. Growth requires flexibility. Growth requires the ability to say, maybe I was wrong. And that's not weakness. That's a strength. Let's repeat the core message. Pride keeps you stuck, but humility moves you forward. Pride closes doors, but openness creates opportunities. If you want better relationships, better decisions, and a better life, you have to be willing to let go of being right all the time. The third lesson is about prejudice, the silent filter that shapes how we see others. Prejudice doesn't always look extreme or obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, it's quiet, it's automatic. It's when you assume someone's character based on limited information, when you categorize people too quickly, when you let social expectations influence your judgment. And the danger is, once you form that prejudice, you start looking for evidence to confirm it. You stop seeing the full picture.
And that's not weakness. That's a strength. Let's repeat the core message. Pride keeps you stuck, but humility moves you forward. Pride closes doors, but openness creates opportunities. If you want better relationships, better decisions, and a better life, you have to be willing to let go of being right all the time. The third lesson is about prejudice, the silent filter that shapes how we see others. Prejudice doesn't always look extreme or obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, it's quiet, it's automatic. It's when you assume someone's character based on limited information, when you categorize people too quickly, when you let social expectations influence your judgment. And the danger is, once you form that prejudice, you start looking for evidence to confirm it. You stop seeing the full picture.
In modern life, this happens constantly. At work, in friendships, in family dynamics, even online. You see one post, one comment, one action, and you decide who someone is. But here's the truth. People are more complex than your assumptions. So the lesson is this. Question your assumptions. Challenge your perspective. Be willing to update your understanding. Let's say it again in a different way. Don't let your past beliefs blind you to present reality. Don't let your assumptions replace actual understanding. When you remove prejudice, you start seeing people clearly, and that changes everything. The fourth lesson is about emotional maturity, the ability to grow beyond your initial reactions. At first, we react emotionally. We feel offended, impressed, annoyed, attracted, and we act on those feelings. But emotional maturity means stepping back. It means observing your reaction instead of being controlled by it. It means asking yourself, why do I feel this way? Is this reaction accurate? Am I seeing the full picture? In daily life, this could mean not responding immediately to criticism, not making quick decisions in relationships, not letting temporary emotions dictate permanent choices. And here's the key idea. Your initial reaction is not your final decision. Your first feeling is not your final truth. When you slow down and reflect, you make better choices. Let's repeat it clearly. Emotional maturity is the ability to pause, reflect, and respond with clarity instead of impulse. This is where growth happens. This is where better outcomes begin. Now, let's bring all of this into real life. If you apply this today, start with awareness. Notice how quickly you judge people. Notice your first impressions. Notice your assumptions. Most people ignore this, but awareness is the first step to change. Then, practice delaying judgment. The next time you meet someone new or feel strongly about someone, pause. Remind yourself that you don't have the full story yet. This small shift alone can transform your relationships. This is where real change begins. Next, challenge your pride. Ask yourself honestly, where am I refusing to reconsider? Where am I holding on to being right instead of being open? If you can admit even one mistake today, if you can listen more than you speak, you're already growing. And finally, question your assumptions regularly. Instead of saying, "I know what this person is like," try asking, "What might I be missing?" That single question can open your mind and change how you interact with others. Remember, growth doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being willing to adjust, to learn, and to see more clearly. And here's the most important takeaway. Your life is shaped not just by what happens to you, but by how you interpret what happens. And when you improve your perception, you improve your decisions, your relationships, and your future. So take this with you. Be slower to judge, quicker to reflect, and always open to seeing more than your first impression. If this summary helped you, subscribe to daily audiobook summaries. And next, listen to our summary of Sense and Sensibility, where you'll discover another powerful lesson about balancing emotion and logic in everyday life. Stay calm, stay aware, and keep learning.